What's up, humans, and welcome to a new Psicoactivo. Happy Saturday, everybody. This is a video that I pre-recorded because I'm currently taking a little time off. I'll be back on Monday, but I figured that after reading Penetration, which was fascinating to me, I would talk a little bit more about the moon and whatever Tom DeLonge has stated about the moon, because no matter what you think about Tom DeLonge, he is one of the main reasons why everything that's been happening since 2017 happened. He had been doing a media tour for a few years before the 2017 article took place. He was going on Jimmy Church, he was going on Coast to Coast, he was going on with Linda Moulton Howe. He was doing everything and he was talking about a lot of different things. I have a few videos of Tom talking about ancient gods and the connection to the others and all of this stuff. But his statements about the moon are pretty wild. And I just want to show you what he's been saying about the moon. The first clip we're going to go through is from the Joe Rogan Experience, that infamous interview by now, where Tom DeLonge tries to explain everything that he thinks is going on. And Joe constantly dismisses him and treats him as if he was just a crazy person, which I think to this day, Joe Rogan owes Tom DeLonge an apology for doing that. One of the statements that he made is about the moon. And just listen to what he says here.
And just like my company is going to be building, this electromagnetic craft that really can do the same thing to time that I've been telling you about. Other civilizations have that too, which means you can traverse those distances of space. And what you have to,
he was like talking very matter-of-factly about this. So maybe Joe's reaction was warranted, but it was a little too dismissive in my opinion. But yeah, he was talking about very matter-of-factly about all their civilizations and the moon, and he even showed a video about the TR-3B, which is a fabled reverse engineered triangle that everybody talks about and everybody mentions now. He was talking about these things on this podcast.
Think about is what happened when we first discovered that and what did we do about it? And there's no, you got to look at 47 in a very peculiar way. 90 days after the Roswell event, CIA was created, the Air Force was separated from the Army, the National Security Act was created. And all those things are mechanisms to start learning more and to start getting private industry off the ground.
So that had nothing to do with World War II. You think it had to do with aliens?
Oh, I absolutely think it. Well, both, because what I believe crashed at Roswell was, I believe it was German from Argentina, but it had hallmarks and technology based on alien technology. So we put out a story saying it's alien. And then we put out a story saying it's a weather balloon. But the real thing it was, we didn't want anyone to guess. And that's why we put those two things out there. And that's kind of how they do it. I think they did that with the moon. It's like, we went to the moon, and then they put out this meme kind of thing. Like we didn't go to the moon, but they didn't want people really going, well, what's on the moon?
Okay. So that's one thing from Tom DeLonge. The other one that I'm going to show you guys is this one. Shout out to my friend UAP Juan, who does amazing work on X. This is a post from Tom DeLonge talking on Coast to Coast about the moon.
I had someone tell me one time that was definitely in the know. I mean, this is a kind of individual where people in black suits and black cars would monitor his family all the time. What he told his neighbors, he couldn't even leave the country. And I mean, he was like, we've been mining on the moon for 30 years. That's kind of like, why? What's up there? What have we been mining? What's, like.
Wait. He told you we've been mining on the moon for 30 years?
Absolutely. I mean, don't you find it? I think a lot of people find it very odd that we just stopped, all these Apollo missions. And check this out. The guy that was the architect of StrangeTimes.com, before we built Strange Times, we were doing some stuff with NASA. NASA wanted to work with Angels and Airwaves, and we're flying in and out. And when we're out there pitching them on something, they went out to the hallway, and my buddy that worked for me was just pulled two people aside. Says, "Okay, so what's the deal? What's the deal with UFOs?" And they kind of look at each other, and they stopped. They said, well, we don't know too much about that, but I will tell you this. He said, after we ended the last Apollo mission, she said, the FBI came into NASA and took and destroyed all the technology and all the paperwork and everything on how to get to the moon.
That's pretty wild, right? And who is talking to Tom DeLonge? I wonder. Could that be like from the same agency that this mysterious Axelrod from Penetration worked for? Could they be? I don't know.
Literally took it all. So it's not that we don't have the technology to get back there. We just don't have we don't have the billions of dollars of work. We'd have to start from scratch again. Like, and so the question that's raised is, why did they come in and take that? What was the purpose of hiding that or making it so difficult to start all over again? And I wonder if it's because they took it to a different part of the U.S. government that was going to continue the research, or I wonder if they just wanted to make sure no one else goes while they're going, or who knows what the question is. But I think that the idea of jet propulsion rockets, of what we've been using since the 60s to get there into low Earth orbit or whatever, I think that's just, it makes no sense to me. There's videos all over YouTube of that black triangle craft flying everywhere, and I don't think it's a little green man inside of it. It's showing up everywhere. I think it's a U.S. craft, and if we have technology like that, we're popping to the moon within like 15 minutes, you know?
That's pretty wild, right? And I got another one for you from the Jimmy Church podcast, where Tom also talks about the moon, and this is what he says.
Check this out. You know, isn't it weird that I'm learning these things about human consciousness and how it repels negative things or whatever? And my band Angels and Airwaves did a double album and a movie called Love.
Yes, right.
As an experiment. Right. Because it was an experiment of intention. I saw some dude freezing water molecules, and he would write on a piece of paper. He would write love or hate or whatever. And depending on what he wrote on that piece of paper, he would tape it to these little jars of water. And under the microscope, if he just wrote with a pencil love, the water would freeze in these beautiful symmetrical crystals. If he wrote rape or hate or war, they would be these gelatinous blobs that looked deformed. And so I said, well, let's name this whole project Love. And let's write it weird with a little astronaut sitting on the moon and then make it esoteric. And when people look at it, they all know what the word love means. So there's going to be an energy projected towards it. And let's see how good it does. Let's see if it matters. Let's see if that's a good art project. And it did insane. It did super good. And a lot of what that band is about is that kind of stuff, you know. But like now I'm like tripping because I was already kind of doing it. And now I'm like learning that's a real thing, that it's like a real thing that the military and the intelligence community and other areas of the DoD know about and take very seriously, that the human spirituality component of consciousness and the positive feelings of love and happiness is very important.
Clearly, Tom has been talking to someone. He wrote those Secret Machines books, both the fiction and the nonfiction ones. And he talks about all of this. Probably those 3 nonfiction books with Peter Levenda are arguably the best amalgamation of everything that might be going on. And I just found it fascinating that Tom DeLonge seems to know a lot, or was told a lot. And another aspect that I think could correlate to whatever the moon might be, because the moon is really strange. There's a wonderful episode that is really thorough about what the moon could be from the Y-Files, and AJ breaks it down wonderfully. But when I spoke to David Velasco, who is an author from Chile, about the Nazca tridactyls, he spoke to me about the lore that is happening in South America, and how people from different civilizations and different cultures throughout the years have been passing around oral tradition about who these tridactyl beings might be or were. And in the lore there, they say, or they claim, that there was a time when the moon did not exist on Earth. And there was a time when they say, the lore says, that the moon arrived and it had visitors. And these visitors, they claim, are the tridactyls. So presumably, and this is what the lore of the South American cultures believe, the moon is a giant, massive craft, which is where these visitors came from. And they flew here and that. That's what the lore says. And I think it's very interesting that there's so much mystery around the moon. Also, in the book Penetration, Mingo Swan claims that he remote viewed the moon and he saw structures in the dark side of the moon, and he saw beings and he saw UFOs. The Apollo missions, there are a couple of interviews from both Buzz Aldrin and other astronauts who were part of that mission, who they claimed that they saw things that they couldn't understand about the moon. And if you see the astronauts right after they came back from the moon, you see their faces and they're shocked. They seem like they have some kind of PTSD based on whatever they saw when they were there. So who knows what they saw? But yeah, the moon is one of the biggest mysteries from the entire UFO topic. There's a lot of lore surrounding it. And I'm just really curious to hear what you have investigated about the moon. What can you tell us? Leave it in the comments. If you have any suggestions for books or videos or whatever you have seen about the moon, please leave it there. I'm going to leave links in the description to everything that I shared here today. And I'm also going to leave a link to that interview I had with David Velasco. He speaks perfect English, so we did it in English. And I think that that interview deserves a lot more views than it has. It doesn't have many. Because it is very interesting that he's been investigating this for a while, and he wrote a couple of books already about this lore and about this. He calls him Viracocha, which is presumably one of the ancient deities who came on the moon and sort of like communed with the civilization from that time. It's a really interesting interview, and I'm just going to leave it in the description. But let me know, what do you think about the moon overall and about Tom DeLonge presumably having so much information about everything? Who has he been talking to? We know that one of these people is Jim Semivan, who also seems to know a lot about this. But who else has he been talking to? Or do you think he's just being psyoped? Just let me know in the comments. If you like the content you see, I'm going to ask you to like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. That's all you need to do in order to help us, and it is what helps us the most, so thank you. But if you want to support us in any other way, there's a few links down there you can choose from. You can become a member on YouTube, or you can support us through KGRA. Anything you choose to do is always appreciated, so thank you. We're also on every platform now. All the interviews are on every platform, so you can go there. Thank you, KGRA, for making that happen. That's it for me today on this video, but I'll see you guys in the next one. Remember, stay curious and inquisitive like Tom DeLonge. Always. Bye.